Oh, it's so wonderful to see you again. Come in and unwind. Welcome back to the Celestial Café, a podcast for the magical mind.
So come, take a seat. Would you like something sweet? A star drop potion for the soul? Maybe an enchanted eclair as a treat?
I just baked a batch of warm cookies with a dash of moonlight. I wonder what will happen if you take a little bite.
Here is your bewitching beverage. Let each sip melt your worries away. It's time to open your mind. I wonder what magic awaits us today.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Celestial Café Podcast. Today it is myself, Panthera, and Fuchsia here for our mini episode. This week's topic is talking about our favorite witch books for beginners. We chose this episode to complement the launch of our Patreon book club, which you can now join at our $10 tier on patreon.com/Celestial Café TV and check out the Luna Pop tier. Very excited to share this with you guys. Fuchsia has helped plan it all out and will be leading our sessions. Did you kind of want to explain what we decided?
Yeah, I'm really excited. First of all, this whole episode is going to be talking about books, which is my favorite subject ever. Librarian, lunar libraries. I love books. And we're going to talk about some of our favorite beginner witchcraft books. But to launch the book club in Patreon, we picked one specific book that is a great book for both beginners and experienced practitioners alike. We're going to be reading Psychic Witch by Matt Aron. How we're going to format this is it's going to be 2 months per book. And the first month at the end of the first month, we'll meet together and discuss and do a little ritual from like the first half of the book. And then at the second month, we will be discussing the whole book, just kind of like our thoughts and insights on it, see if anyone got any different things from it. This is a really, really great book about just strengthening your psychic abilities as a witch. And about, it's a lot of protection, a lot of meditation, a lot of all of that great stuff. We're going to talk about it during this episode.
Yes.
So we're really excited to start off with this because even if you've been practicing for 10 years, if you've been practicing for 10 days,
yeah, it's definitely
you will get a lot out of this
in my opinion. So I'm just so excited. Even though we're going to be doing bi-monthly books, we wanted to give you guys plenty of time to be able to get to the book and to be able to read the book. We know we all have busy lives, but we're still going to be doing monthly meetings. So you'll still be getting that content every month in that group hangout, which I'm so excited for. We're creating a whole forum in the Discord, so that should be rolling out shortly. Very, very excited, and I hope you guys join us, and we'll see you at the end of June for our first meetup for the book club. So
I'm really excited about getting together to do rituals and actually putting into practice the things that we read about in these books as a group. I'm really excited about that.
I'm definitely, because I read a lot and not as much as I used to, but I'm getting back into it. And very rarely do I actually take the time to go through and practice some of the spells and exercises that are in a lot of these books that we're going to be discussing today. So it's really fun to get the opportunity to discuss it in a group, and we can talk about how we would tweak things to apply to our individual practices and how to like maybe manipulate it to apply to a different situation. I love that kind of conversation within witchcraft and group practice that you don't often get as a solo practitioner, which all of us here at least are, and I'm sure many of you at home. So definitely check out the $10 tier on our Patreon if you're interested in kind of this. It's like a book coven. Like, it's great. Yeah.
We've already had some really excited interest in it, and I am just so pleased to see that the moment we launched it, people signed up for it. So this is going to be great.
So happy. So today specifically, we're going to be talking about our top 5 books for beginner witches for each of us. I am really excited for this episode because getting into this practice, there's so much. And they always tell you when you get into witchcraft, like research. Like you just start with learning everything. But it's so overwhelming. And then almost every book is also like marketed to beginners. There's very few books that aren't. And I think that this is such like a it's so useful to actually hear from other like creators and things and book reviewers about what books they actually think are helpful for beginners. Because when you're just starting out, this is how I kind of created my list. Is like, okay, right at the beginning when I was just interested or starting to like actually practice, like I'd done my research, I knew I was interested in like the overall. Now I wanted to get into like the nitty gritty and how do I actually begin? How do I actually start? These are the books that I wish I had read sooner and had with me during that first section of that journey. So I think both of us had for our first book, Psychic Witch by Matt Oren, which since we just talked about how that's going to be our book for the book club, we're going to talk about it in a way that is not spoilery at all. So definitely if you're interested in this, come join us in the book club and let's talk about it together. But so one thing that I love about this book in particular, and it starts off, I read it a while ago, so also feel free to correct me because it's been a few years. It talks about the importance of understanding energy, like, and being able to recognize when things are working and when things aren't. And I think that's such a crucial thing. That's some of like the first exercises are about being able to sense kind of energy and when you've actually made the shift. So that way, you know, when that spell you just did is actually gaining you benefits. And I think that's such a crucial skill to kind of have and be able to recognize. Energy work is just so in different ways, whether it's spell work and things like that. It's so important to witchcraft, and it is such like a tool that can be used in tandem. Even if I know both of us are more of like the traditional witches kind of here on the podcast, but even just looking at it from more of like a spiritual perspective, if you're not necessarily, you don't consider yourself a witch, you don't consider yourself necessarily like someone who's practicing witchcraft, even if you are just interested in energy or manifestation, this book is still going to be extremely helpful to you and what you want to achieve with your goals and your practices. What do you think, Fuchsia?
When I first picked up this book, I actually didn't pick it up until fairly recently, like within the past year. And I think I actually asked you, I was like, I know you're a big fan of this book. Do you think it's still useful for someone who has been practicing and has been doing magic for a while? Or do you think I should just skip it? And you were like, no, you'll get stuff out of it. And I did. But when I first picked it up, I picked it up because I'm specifically like trying to hone my actual like innate psychic abilities that I have.
You have clairs, right? Like you have clear senses and so on.
So like I've always always seen things before they happen. I have prophetic dreams and visions and stuff. So like trying to just tame those, I guess, and be able to control them more. So when I opened this, that's what I was hoping to get out of this book. There's so much more. There's so much more in this book about just psychic hygiene. To like use a weird phrase that just came out of nowhere, but basically like your psychic hygiene, like how to maintain your psychic abilities and to keep them clear of all those negative energies that you like just pick up in your day to day. Definitely something I need to be more aware of doing.
Exactly. And I think that like we'll just talk about spiritual hygiene for a minute, but or psychic hygiene. It's kind of like if your house is messy and you're trying to find something, it's so difficult, right? There's so much other things in the way. So you can kind of, that same concept applies as I whack my mic, in like, internally or energetically and everything. It kind of can go in multiple layers, but it's so important to have everything kind of like clear and open for you to be able to receive those messages or interpret or sense. So it's so important.
And this book will just give you a solid foundation on that. And it's great. Like, it's one of those things I did not put, like, I mean, when I started, I meditated and I knew about like energy and boundaries and like keeping things clean and stuff. But like, I did not put a lot of work into maintaining them as thoroughly as honestly people really should. So it's like, which I mean, I work in like at the time when I first started, I was working like social health and like social social work, work, and mental health. And like, I really could have used this stuff, but instead I was taking all that stuff home and it was stressing me out and everything. And just like getting into this book and reading things and like, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So like, I know I should be doing this. Yeah. And one of the things I love about this book is that every chapter has different focus, but there are so many different exercises. So you can choose like what kind of exercise works for you.
100%. And that's one of the things I loved so much about this book is the exercises were actually, as somebody, I really struggle with meditation. A lot of exercises that books give, they're not very ADHD friendly. And that is one thing that I still use the meditation exercises from the beginning of this book to this day. Like it's one of the only ones that actually like works for me. It's so good. Like very ADHD friendly.
Yeah. Now I'm just thinking we need to do an episode on ADHD witchcraft because
that would be fun. Yeah.
It has its struggles. But yeah, like that's at the very beginning of the book, and throughout the book you build on that initial like meditation practice, and you can add to it or you can change it or you can just keep it exactly how you did the first exercise, and it's really great. It's so accessible to everyone, honestly.
100%. 100%. So what do you consider to be your next most crucial book for beginners?
My next book is not a surprise because I mentioned this one on the podcast a lot. And yet I forgot it off my list when I sent it to you. But Madame Pamita's Book of Candle Magic. I love this book. It is amazing for anyone who, first of all, I mean, for people who do candle magic, but it's got so many resources on like information on other things like oils and different color associations and all of that. So this is a really great book for anyone who does candle magic of any type. It will teach you how to do basic candle magic, and it will give you the information to upgrade your candle magic to using anointing oils, to making your own anointing oils, even to how to make your own beeswax candles, and like just different things for what different shapes of candles are good for. Like if you have a cat-shaped candle, that might be good for stealth or for protection, versus a like a body-shaped candle would be used for influencing other people kind of things. So there's so much information in this book. You can tell I have referenced it a lot because like the cover is rubbing off. Like I use this book
spilled on the corner.
Yeah.
I will say this is one of the books. I got this book at Fuchsia's recommendation a while ago, right when I was getting into candle making as well. And this book is something I've never sat and read it all the way through, but I do reference it so often. And it's one of those things that's great to have on your shelf as like a reference book when you're planning on doing a candle spell, or even just to get like ideas and inspiration for something that you might be working on. I love to use candle magic in tandem with like all other spells that I do pretty much. Candles are always there and going no matter what I'm doing. So this book has been a very helpful addition to my library as well.
Yeah, one of the things I love, it's not like you might look at the title of the Book of Candle Magic and you might think it's a book of spells. It's not. This is the information to create your own spells and to power up your spells and to do them more successfully. So I love that. I have books of spells. This is not one of them. But one of the other things I love, this entire back section here, this is all appendices. appendices.
It's so nice when books do that, especially witchcraft books, because like you sometimes you'll be looking back and you want to just get a specific idea. This is why I definitely recommend taking notes, by the way, too, when reading witchcraft books, because so often I'm so bad at it and I always want to go back and reference something and I can never find it again. Highly recommend.
One of the things I like about these appendixes is, I don't remember what the plural form of that is, but that's okay, is that they're organized by use. So this is a list of magical herbs, but it's all, these are the herbs for attraction. These are the herbs for fame. These are the herbs for immortality. Ooh, immortality. But so it's organized by use instead of being like, okay, well, I have parsley. What's parsley good for? Nope, I don't need that. Which, like, I like when books have that too.
I like both, ideally.
Yeah.
But yes, it's hard sometimes.
It's nice with the scope of this book. It's nice to have it organized by that way. So like Panthera said, it's a really great reference tool. So there's like an appendix on magical talismans, and there's an appendix on just like different crystals, even that these things that you can use in tandem with your candle magic. So I
in this book, for having like such a good I think it's appendices.
I know, right? I think so too.
But this book is very affordable compared to some of the other like big books. Like I'm thinking of like some of the Scott Cunningham, some of the Buckland books, like, you know, some of those like big hefty witchcraft books. This book has a lot of those kinds of same correspondences, albeit a little smaller, right? But for a very affordable price. So if you're looking for a good, easy reference book, this one's a great one to have.
While I'm on the subject, I didn't include this because I was thinking more like narrative books and books like you sit down and read. But on the subject of references, absolute 100%. Everyone should have this book is Llewellyn's book of correspondences. It is a huge, huge book. I didn't grab it because I didn't think of it, but it's huge. It has everything. It has astrology. It has crystals. It has herbs. It has colors. It has days of the week. It has gods and goddesses. It has everything. It is huge. And I think it's actually only like $35 for such a big book.
Not too bad.
Llewellyn's book of correspondences, I think everyone should have. But I didn't include it because it's not a sit down and read book. It's literally a reference book. So that's it.
So I think
what about you?
So I read these two books one after the other, and so they kind of merged together in my brain. And this was again a little while ago, so bear with me if you've read these and I say this incorrectly. But there's two of Jason Miller's books, The Sorcerer's Secrets and then The Elements of Spellcrafting. And both of these books are fantastic. I recommend them both. I think that I want to say it goes Sorcerer's Secrets first and then Elements of Spellcrafting second. I think that's the order that he wrote them in, but I'm not entirely sure. But in them, basically, he talks about whole systems of like how magic works and explains them in multiple ways. So he very thoroughly explains when it's coming from his own personal use and then what the majority of people like. These tend to be the three ways that people see the world, and these are like the religions that would fit within those viewpoints. But then this is how we're going to use this in our magical practice, and this ritual kind of corresponds with that. And it's so, I love going into like the science behind things and the understanding. And Jason Miller does such a good job with explaining how he thinks magic works. And it's very, very fascinating to me. Highly, highly recommend. Elements of Spellcrafting too. I want to say that's the one where he goes through each parts of spells, like timing, and then correspondences, and then like materials versus non-material. And he goes through all these different reasons of why or why not your spells might work. So like if your spells aren't working, these are the things to take a look at. And it goes into like the importance of words and like the importance of structure and like so many different things. And it's so helpful for like, It's like, I would consider these like foundational textbooks if you were like looking through it. Like, I don't know. He just does such a good job of explaining like how the basics of spellcrafting works and how these things build up to give you the results that you're looking for, and how you might tweak them to give you the results. And they're just fantastic books. I know a lot of people recommend his book, Protection and Reversal Magic is one of the first books for beginners. And that is a fantastic book. I will say it's his first book, and it's very specifically targeted toward like Hecatean magic. So if you're very interested in working with Hecate, highly recommend. If you're not, just it's going to take some tweaking for you to really apply it to what you do. A lot of his stuff is very like ceremonial inspired. So just to, take what works for you. But that book, I do think it's a great read. But I think that sometimes understanding like the building blocks of what you're trying to do is more important than like, here's some spells or here's how this overall
absolutely
like category of magic works. And protection is obviously very, very important. I'm not trying to say that it's not, but I think that understanding in general how you get a spell to work will make it so that way when you go to do protection magic, that will be more effective, or you'll be able to understand better, like, is the spell actually working? Because protection's one of those things where it's like, obviously it's very important and every witch should have it, right? But it's also very difficult to know when it's actually working. Like, unless you have like somebody who's like actively trying to get you, or somebody who is like harassing you online and then they stop, like something that's active, like an event going on, it's really difficult to know if you're just like chilling, living your best life. Like, is it working? Is it not? Like, I don't know. Like, it can be a little more tricky for beginners, I think.
Yeah, and like what you're saying, like knowing the building blocks is really important for just knowing whether something's working or not, or how to tailor it to better suit you and your life and your needs.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I'm also a big fan of, I was actually just talking about this on stream the other day, about how I'm a big fan of, you have to know the rules of magic to know how to break them. And like certain things might work for you that are not normally like protection, but they might work for you for reasons because you have a strong association with this. But until you really understand why, you can't just throw it in a spell. So knowing stuff like that is important. I've never read Jason Miller, but I know I have heard you mention his books
I talk about his books a lot, and I just really enjoy his style of writing too, because it's very like practical. It's very from experience too. He has a lot of he spent a lot of time working with a lot of different practitioners from a lot of different walks of life, which is very interesting. But then he's also like no bullshit. Like, he kind of just like tells you how it is. It's funny sometimes, it's silly sometimes, but like it feels like you're having a conversation with a person instead of like reading a textbook or something, if that makes sense. Like, sometimes I feel like a lot of books, especially witchcraft books, people are trying almost too hard to be like the professional witch, the high and mighty, like, and it feels just very aloof sometimes. And that's one of the reasons why I really like his writing style. It feels like talking to a person or like a mentor or somebody who's like honestly trying to help you, but they're doing it in a way that isn't
too casual.
Yeah, they're not being like condescending, but like it's,
what up, dudes?
Yeah. But it's highly recommend. His stuff's very, very good. But those two in particular, I would consider those two books have had a big influence on my practice overall. What about your next one?
Okay, so I'm gonna take a page from your book and talk about two books at the same time, kind of. We'll do one after the other, but they're in the same vein. So the first is Badass Ancestors by Patty Wigington, which is just, I have notes in here and everything. It's just a really great start if you want to start working with ancestors.
That book has been on my wish list for a long time. We might have to add that to our list for
it's books. Really good. I was thinking it might be good for leading up to Samhain, because it's great. It's not a lot of the actual, I mean, some of it's the actual work of working with the ancestors, but it's the information on ancestral archetypes, what to do if you don't have, like, if you don't know your ancestors or don't want to work with them. It's information on finding information about your ancestors. I will say it is mostly geared to people of European descent, but it does have, like, just with the resources of, like, finding ancestry and stuff. But it does have information for people who were either, like, adopted or their ancestors were slaves and they don't know what came before, where they came from exactly. So it does have information for that. It's also, like, it's a really short book. I think I read this in like 2 or 3 days, honestly. It's a lot of information, but it's a really good, easy read. I love this. This spurred me into finally getting into ancestor work myself, beyond just my close ancestors, like my dad and my best friend. And it led me into finding really interesting stories about my ancestors. So I was like, my ancestors were involved in the Salem witch trials. They protested the Salem witch trials and had to flee Salem because then they were branded as witches. My ancestors, their parents were arrested in Plymouth because they didn't go to church. So my ancestors were rebel rousers from way back when, like, all the way to, like, we can trace it to the 1100s in Scotland, and like signing the Declaration of Independence in Scotland and, like, revolting against the king. And so like, I found all that, like, information from this, like, from being spurred by this.
Very interesting. Yeah, inspiration takes over sometimes, right?
Yeah. So this was like a really great catalyst for getting into ancestor work. So I really recommend it for anyone who might be interested in ancestor work. And then if you get through this and you find out about your ancestors, or again, ancestral archetypes, if you want to work with the spirit of Joan of Arc, I fucking love Joan of Arc. Like, you can work with her as an ancestor because it's an ancestor archetype, and there's an entire chapter about that and what that means. And like, you can work with even, like, archetypes of people who didn't really exist, but they're so integral to, like
Arthurian
folklore.
Legends.
That was literally what I was going to say.
If you guys don't know already, Fuchsia is a huge, like, Arthurian legend buff. That's actually very into King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table.
I may have an Arthurian legend book over here for talking about, maybe. But so it goes into that, like, you can work with these ancestral archetypes if you want to, like, bring in some of that courage or that sense of honor or, like, chivalry or whatever. You can use the ancestral archetypes if you don't have anyone in your actual family line that you want to work with for that reason. And then once I finished that, I picked up this book, A Spirit Work Primer. It's a beginner's guide to spirit work by Nag Loki Shivanoth. I actually met him and he sent my book. But it's a really great actually doing the work book. It's a really great, like, this is how you work with spirits, not just ancestors. There's sections in here in ancestors, but also with otherworldly spirits. When I wanted to get started, I was like, okay, I want to get started, but how do I do things? And a lot of this book is based on different ceremonial magic. So a lot of like, there's some things that are very ceremonial and like a whole like 30 days of like giving offerings to a spirit before you work with them and stuff. But there's specific, like when you're trying to work with deities or you're trying to work with demons and you don't want them to screw you over kind of thing. There's all in here, but there's also the less ceremonial that he goes over. That's more the day to day, because not everyone is going to be able to dedicate 30 days of nothing but putting out offerings and meditating. So he does go over some of the more rigorous things, but he also goes over the more everyday kind of things that people can incorporate into their practice. So I really enjoyed this book. It's not very well known. It was just reprinted after not being printed for many, many years. So it was just reprinted, but it's really a hidden gem, I would say. I enjoy this book a lot. So it's just like how to work with them and how to communicate with them and what you can get from different kinds of spirits. So it's not just ancestors, but ancestors are spirits that you can work with. But so that's this book. I really enjoyed that. That's a spirit work primer. So like primer, cool. It's totally for beginners. So if you've never done any spirit work before, it is going to hold your hand through it, and it's great. But it's also good for people who have done some work also. So yeah.
So I think my next book, and this book, I kind of went back and forth on whether or not I wanted to include this one because it wasn't my favorite book that I've read, but I feel like it went over a lot of really cool concepts that I wish I had learned and knew of sooner. But this is The Witch at the Forest's Edge. And this is by Christine Grace. So just so you guys know, getting into this book, it is like a specific tradition that these people have created, and they have like their own like online coven and things like that. And they do talk about it a lot. I feel like that's a little bit of a red flag for me. Because I don't necessarily want to go join like some random like, internet coven. But a lot of the concepts of this. So this book is basically about what their path is and what they hold dear on this path. And so it talks a lot about riding the hedge. It's very much about interacting with like the land spirits around you and communicating with spirits in a way that is very similar. Like it's basically hedge witchery, with a focus on working with the land around you, specific like your local land spirits, your native plant species, your animals around you. So I did find a lot of this book to be very inspiring for me and working with what is around me. They talk a lot about some great techniques for getting into like trance states and things like that. That's something that I didn't really know for a long time, and how integral that can be into, especially with spirit communication and things like that. And I feel like a lot of books don't even touch some of this stuff. But I think at the very least, even if you don't want to try it for yourself, learning about ways to get into like trance states, whether it be through rhythm, beats, movement, dance, however you wish to do it. I think it can be a very effective tool for like building and raising energy, for getting into a more liminal headspace, and for accessing kind of like, like kind of almost that like subconscious, right? It kind of like puts you in a moving meditation almost. So for that particular reason, I put this book in my top 5. Between that and just teaching you like the structure of how you start working with your local land spirits and things like that. I thought this book was very helpful in that way. So it fought its way up there, but
I haven't heard of it, so
oh yeah, it's
I
pretty.
guess
It was recommended. I listened to it on ebook. So I want to go back and like actually like read it too. But I learned a lot from it, which I thought was interesting. And it definitely like helped inspire the work that I was already doing with my local land spirits and things like that. So it's definitely a book that I wish I had at the early part of my practice to just open myself up to working with more of what's around me rather than feeling like I needed to go somewhere or buy something or whatever at the beginning of my practice. Like that's the main reason why I liked this book.
Mm-hmm.
What about you for your next one?
This is my last book. We've gone through 4 of them already. Wow. So this is also another, I actually did get this book fairly early on in my practice, not like super early on, but fairly early on. But it's Weave the Liminal by Laura Tempest Zakroff. It is a great overall beginner book. What I like about this is that it touches on a bunch of different subjects and goes into them enough to pique your interest and give you some information, but it doesn't go into any topic very heavily, which when you're first starting out, you might be overwhelmed with. There are so many different things. I mean, literally anything in the world could be a part of witchcraft. So there's so many things. So this touches on a lot of them and really explains like, what is a witch? That is literally a section in the book. What is a witch? What makes a witch? And she doesn't really give like a concrete definition, but more gets you thinking about what is a witch. Actually, I think Laura uses she and they pronouns. So I hope I'm correct on that. But it's just really great. There's a section on working with deities. It is like choosing a god or not. So it's like, it's really emphasizing you don't have to work with deities if you don't want to. I know, especially if you're on Witch Talk, sometimes like working with deities seems like it's a necessity. It's not. So she goes into that. There's like exploring, you might guess, the liminal aspects of witchcraft. There's the craft part of witchcraft, the materials, the materia magica that we use to actually put together our spells, going into like there's sections going into like gathering herbs and like doing all the actual physical thing. But what I really like most about this book is that it really emphasizes making your own craft, making your craft for your path, for what works for you. She gives you a lot of options and a lot of information in a way that's not overwhelming, but also in a way that is like, this is you. This is for you to decide what to do. And here's information. You're going to do whatever works for you with this information. And I really like that, especially for beginners who might only be familiar with a few different things and just, or familiar with way too many things and are overwhelmed, or they think that, like, especially if you're coming from a more like a Catholic background like me, you think there's one way to do things. That's not the case. And so I really like that. As a note, she also wrote one of my other great books, Sigil Witchery. Yeah, Sigil Witchery. It's great for getting into sigil magic. It's the only way that sigils actually make sense to me. There's a couple different ways of doing sigils, but this relies on more like actual symbols rather than like the writing out letters kind of way that people do. So I really like, this is like an actual book on how to combine sigils. Like, here's all these different symbols and how to combine them. But I wanted to just throw that in as a like little aside, because both of these books are great, and definitely start with this one. But if you're interested in sigil magic, this is like a great sigil book. So, yeah.
Ooh, I know those books. So Sigil Witchery, I've definitely like touched in a lot, referenced it a lot. Weave the Liminal, I've been wanting to read for a while. I have it. It's just one of those books that I just haven't gotten around to quite yet. But I love Sigil Witchery. That's so helpful. I reference it all the time. So I think my final book is Of Blood and Bones by Kate. I think it's Frawler. Which this book probably did the most influence like on my craft of all the books that are here. It is a darker book, so just so you guys know, this book is not all love and light. It talks about using blood. It talks about using dirt, bugs. Like it does not shy away from the dirty, gross parts of the craft. It talks a lot about cursing and hexing, and kind of the ethics and morals behind this. And I just welcome you to read it with an open mind and see kind of how, you know, your ethics and morals fit in with this. You of course don't have to do anything that you don't agree with. But it definitely is an eye-opening book.
Yeah, when it comes to reading about like curses and hexing, I mean, maybe this speaks to me as a librarian, but I'm always of the mind that like knowing is good, even if you don't want to do.
Absolutely.
Even like say like you know about hexes and someone hexes you know how
you need to know how to break
undo it.
Yeah. If you know what goes into the curse, then you know how to break a curse.
Yeah.
So, yeah, even if you're looking at it from just a defensive point of view like that, or just like knowledge, just straight knowledge for knowledge's sake. And not all, this book isn't all about curses. There's protections in it. There are just charms for helping yourself. There's a lot of dark moon magic. So if you work a lot with the full moon, maybe challenge yourself with the dark moon. It's such a good book. And one of the things that this really helped me with, because I did read this book fairly into my practice. But one thing that I hadn't really done much of is making my own stuff from scratch. I wish I had started more like this, with more homemade things, doing things myself. But I feel like I kind of held myself back with like a perfectionist mindset of, well, this person can make it better than me, so I'll just give them money and do that. And, you know, that's great for some things, but I wish I would have gotten more practice in my craft if I had just tried to do it myself.
And now you're the one who makes things and people give you money.
Which, by the way, Farrellwood Ware is on Etsy if you're interested in buying my oils and stuff like that. Crystals. But so anyways, this book talks a lot about layering your craft, and it teaches you, you know, how to make the oil that you're then going to put on your homemade candle, and then how to use both of those things in this spell. And then you make like a powder that's going to go in this. And there's like so many layers. Like you make like a box, and then you put things in the box, and you make the oil to anoint the box, and like just layers upon layers of witchcraft. And nothing has boosted my results more than working in layers. And now that I have it's kind of, and it's more fun too. Like, I don't know how else to describe it. Like, you go from just a candle spell where you just light a candle to making your own oil and anointing it, to adding your custom herb blend that you made. And maybe you mix an incense and you're burning that at the same time, and you're just adding all of this beautiful stuff. It's like a beautiful garden, you know. You go from just roses to a lush mix of vegetation. Like
it turns it into more of a ritual than just lighting a candle. Like more,
exactly. Like it gets you into the headspace
lighting a
more,
candle works,
and it's.
But if you want that ritual feeling, and sometimes you just want to light a candle and go. I mean, that's why I sell tea lights specifically for that. But actually, they're sold out. But like lighting a candle, sometimes you just want that. Sometimes you want an extra oomph. Sometimes you want to. Sometimes it's so important that you want to make a whole big to do about it. It's like I don't know. I'm like comparing my birthday to avocados, my cat. I do nothing for my birthday. His birthday, though, I have a birthday stream. We get tuna. He gets a candle in his tuna.
That's
like
so
everything
cute.
for him. but for me, I'm like, I got some like cheesecake from the grocery store.
Oh, yum. No, honestly, cheesecake from the store is underrated. Mine has like a dulce de leche.
The prepackaged cheesecake from the grocery store. But it's just like his birthday is special and my birthday is just another day. So like you can just making all those different layers and making it this big to-do out of it can be really energizing for a specific spell, keeping in mind we don't always have the energy to do all of that or time or anything. But so
that's one thing that I really liked about this too, because like this book teaches you about like making these individual things and how to layer them. But even if you don't like this is particularly about dark moon magic, so I'm going to use that as the example. Let's say the new moon is coming up and you've had a bad week, but last month you had a good week and you made that oil, and now this time you don't necessarily have to go and make candles or a powder or something new. You can use that oil that you used last time and use it in a way that is unique to a spell that you want, and you have that already made and crafted and it's ready to go. So there's a level of like preparedness too when it comes to like building these layers in your craft and having these items for you to pull from when you need them. So that way, when you don't have the energy, you still have the tools there and ready for you. And because sometimes, I don't want to go and do like a whole big pillar candle and carve it and dress it and everything. Maybe I do want tea lights that I've already made. And maybe those tea lights, when I made them, have like the scents that I want for this particular correspondence, or they're already pre-dressed and they're ready to go. So when I had the energy, I was able to craft things that I could then pull from in the future. And just all of that stuff. This book is one, I read this as a audiobook at first. And it's one of the books that I'm going to go back and purchase, because I wish I could go back and reference this a little more easily than I can with an audiobook. But I highly, highly, highly recommend, even if just a trigger warning for some of the darker material, but even if some of that stuff makes you like a little queasy, I definitely recommend at least reading the book. Just see what you think. So
yeah, I had it on my longer list. I also really love the book. I have it on my shelf. I read the physical book. I had it on my long list, but I was like torn between whether it's actually like a beginner book or more like beginner.
I feel like
intermediate, but
it's one of those books that I feel like could apply to multiple people. I like to include it on my beginner list because I think that learning to layer your practice is so important, and it teaches you kind of. That's what I like about this book, is it's got like a walkthrough of how to layer your practice, so that if you follow this book step by step, like by the end, you have like a variety of spells that all use these materials that you've already made, and you have them ready to go. And you have pretty much the basis of a practice. And I think that even if you just pull inspiration from it and not the actual spells from the book itself, it is very, very helpful in teaching you like how you can use witchcraft in your day to day.
Yeah, I honestly think if we had expanded the list like by one more book, it would have made the cut. But yeah, it's a great book. I loved it. I didn't read it until much further into my practice, but it's super useful. I like it. Definitely get the physical version because it's a great reference. I pull it out
I wish I could go back to it more. So I will be adding a physical copy eventually. Buy from my Etsy shop, and maybe it'll be sooner.
So I guess this is where we should plug. We have links down for these books down below, and also Scribd has almost all of these books in ebook and or audio format, and there are links down below for free trial for Scribd. It's great. It's the best audio ebook.
It's basically Netflix for books. It's fantastic. I highly recommend it. We don't get money from that one, just so you guys know, but we do get free months, so we don't have to pay for it if you guys use it.
We didn't discuss this before, but I think we're going to put both of our referral links in there for Scribd because you can use one referral link and get a free month and give us free months. And then when that expires, you can use the other one and get another free month. So if you want to maximize your reading, click on both links and give us both free books.
I believe it does have
free months.
Psychic Witch too. So if you wanted to join us for the Patreon book club, I believe it has it for audiobook and ebook. So I like to use Scribd on my phone and my iPad. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I love it. I'm a huge fan. It's so much better than Audible, but I digress. But it also, just in general, it has so many witchcraft books. You will never be at a loss for books to read if you're interested.
I was very pleasantly surprised by how many books are available there.
Yeah,
and so we're getting towards the end of time, but I do want to ask, what is your next to read book besides Psychic Witch, of course, which we're going to be reading for the book club? What will be your next must read?
Okay, well, so I have a stack over here. So my collection is a little out of control. I was part of a monthly book subscription service for a while. It no longer runs, sadly, but I would get two books a month every month for like a couple of years of witchcraft books, specifically witchcraft books.
That's pretty cool.
So I have a couple that I haven't gotten to. Yeah, just a couple. I also have a bunch of books that I'm like half in the middle of. So Travels Through Middle Earth, I'm half in the middle of. I love it. It's so good. It's about it's not about Middle Earth like Lord of the Rings. It's Saxon pagans. Baba Yaga's Book of Witchcraft. I love it because I'm trying to get in touch with like my Slavic side. My mom's family is entirely Polish, but I do nothing with it. So that's on the list. But this is my newest acquisition, and I am so excited for it. It's pretty. It's the collector, like limited edition. And it is Merlin, Master of Magic by Gordon Strong.
For those of you guys who are just listening, it's a red, like a deep red hardback book, and it's got like gold foil on the front. It looks almost like a cauldron with like little magical pieces coming from it. There's a moon with some stars in the middle. It's all gold foil. It's very beautiful, very simplistic and pretty.
Gordon Strong, he recently passed, actually right before this released, but he was like an expert on Merlin magic. And me being obsessed with Arthuriana, obviously I have an interest in this, but I just got this a few weeks ago. I actually got it right before finals, because I had pre-ordered it and then didn't have time to go pick it up. So I just got it right before finals, so I haven't had time to actually read it yet, and I am so excited to finally do that when when the school year ends and I can stop giving all of my energy to 5-year-old children. So I'm a teacher, by the way. But I don't just give my energy to 5-year-old children just on the street. But yeah, that's the one I'm really looking forward to next.
All right. I still have to finish The Crooked Path by Keldon, and that one I've been enjoying. I'll have to pull together my full thoughts at some time, but that one I have to finish, and then I think I'm gonna dive into. I've got two options. Plant Witchery, which I'm really excited for. I've heard amazing things.
Is that Julia Diaz?
Yeah.
Yep. I have that. Haven't read it yet, but I have it.
I really want to dive into that one. And then the other one that I got that's kind of just silly fun, I'm curious, is the werewolf magic book that I just got from the Bookland Museum
of Magic. You would.
And I couldn't resist. Okay, I'm skeptical. I'm like, what is this? But I couldn't see a book called Werewolf Magic and not get it, okay?
I
forget
totally
the authors.
understand.
Let me look it up real quick.
I'm honestly, I think you should read that next and give me a full report, because
there's two of them. There's Werewolf Magic and there's Werewolf Pack Magic. I only got the first one, the Werewolf Magic. Authentic practical lycanthropy. I know
vampire magic is a legit thing, so I'm not familiar with werewolf magic, but
me neither.
it's interesting to consider.
I'm very curious, for sure.
I vote you read that.
I kind of want to read that one for fun because I know Plant Witchery is probably going to take me a while because it's a hefty one.
Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see. Maybe let us know in the comments. Or on
what
the
are
Discord
you
if you guys want
reading?
to join us in the Discord. What are you reading? And should I read the werewolf book next or the plant book next? Let me know.
And let us know what you're reading because my completely full bookshelves always need more books. Just
Absolutely.
buy more bookshelves. That's the solution. So I don't know.
All right. Well, go ahead.
Oh no, I'm just I have a book problem.
Problems are a good problem to have. But so that brings us to the end of this episode. I hope you all enjoyed. Let us know your favorite witchcraft books if you haven't already, and come join us in the Patreon. We should be opening up a vote probably here soon about what the next book will be after Psychic Witch, and we're going to be pulling together some times for potential meetings. So definitely join if you want to have your voice heard. And yeah, we'll get more information out to you here soon once we get some actual meeting dates set up. But so excited to be having this opportunity to get to talk to you guys in a more more close environment. Like it's going to be just like a little group chat with all of us. I'm so excited.
Just nerding out about books.
And we'll see you next week for our episode. It's going to be me, Fuchsia, and Shady, and we're going to be talking about Oracle cards. So we'll be missing Doogsley, but we're really excited to chat all about Oracle cards, our favorite decks, and kind of the difference between Oracle and Tarot. So if you're interested in that, definitely come join us next week. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.